Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Coming up, we talk about planetary Synch and Bolster, and between the two of them, why you should care. But first, some other game and guild news. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 186, who is bolstered up to Tier 4 246 eye level gear, but unfortunately, he's permanently level synced down to level 10. So, sorry, pal. With me, as always, is Seema, who's permanently bolstered over 9,000.
Oh my god.
Hi, Seema. How's it going?
It's actually going great. Speaking of command ranks, I'm at command rank 146. So I'm coming up on tier 3. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But I've been enjoying the tier 2 crates. So I actually have... It's just worked out that I have like all 7 set pieces now. They're not all 230, or they're not all 234. But I did get some really fancy 236 boots, so that's nice. They're golden. The letters are golden. So, but yeah, we just got out of mandatory fun night, which was a good one. We went to explosive conflict, and we actually handled Toth and Zorn quite handily. And then we had some fun with the 2 tanks. And then we went and killed Toblerone, which is the Golden Fury on Makeb, which is a good way to end the night.
Yeah.
We had a lot of new people that had never seen any of those fights, so that's always awesome when that happens.
Right. It is. And that Taboro's Cartyard dropped 4, so we were doing 16%. It dropped 4 of the unassembled bracers, which is really useful. So if you do need bracers, drop in there and grab some.
Yeah. So anyway, how was your week?
Also good. So I'm continuing to every once in a while, like every 3 or 4 days, I think I'm getting bored of PvP, and then I PvP a whole bunch again. So I did another 26 command ranks this week, and got to command rank 251 on my mercenary. I think at this rate, I will certainly make 300 by the time 5.2 drops, which then it puts you in position to be at 300. But the latest news is, and this could change, is at 300. You'll stay at 300, but you'll be... every crate you get at 300 will be the new tier 4 crates, and they're going to supposedly work somewhat differently. We'll talk about that in the news, and also I'm sure we'll talk about more in the future when that's finalized.
Well, I know when I get to tier 3, I'm totally going to have the little 3 character flare out, because...
Oh yes, your extra piece of flare. I see you've got the 2. You're sporting the 2 at the moment.
Right.
I think I'm still doing the legendary.
Yes. You look like an elite. Like I'll get more XP if I kill you.
You can try. You will. I also did, because I was doing all of that PvP, I ended up with about 100k in conquest points. And with the PvPers on our imp side, we got in the top 10 on the guild boards for conquest again this week. I didn't realize it's nice getting in the and you reminded me in the pre-show too. If you make your personal target for conquest, you do get a nice chunk of command XP for making that personal target.
Right.
Then
it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing for that personal target on a character. Then if your guild makes the top 10, when you log in on Tuesday and you go to that character and you complete you get your rewards for your guild being in the top 10, you get another pretty big chunk of command XP. So my 251 was for logging in today and getting the bonus from over the week.
Plus, if the way you made your target was by actually doing things instead of crafting, then you would have gotten all the CXP for doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like double dipping.
Yes, so that was good. So that's what I did. Let's see what was going on with the rest of the community in the news.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
A little bit of news. Number one, we did see, and it seems like it still is broken, is the uprising called Landing Party. If you do that Landing Party uprising, apparently there's no last boss. They say that will be fixed in 5.2, but 5.2 is not coming out just yet. When will be in bullet point number 2 in the news, Sima?
Yeah, we have a real specific
When will?
date. It's coming soon, like in the next few weeks or so.
Yeah.
Just a reminder that 5.2 has in it the first boss of the new operation, additional tier of gear, like you just mentioned, the reworked gear drop rates, and I guess tier 4 working in a new way to get you more set pieces. So we have those to look forward to.
Yeah. So they said end of March, beginning of April. I think they're definite on beginning of April, but that's potentially within the next 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
keep an eye out for it. 5.2, new operation. And just to be clear, since I still continue to see confusion in the forums and other places when people discuss it, it's a full operation, but only the first boss will be accessible, is what it is. It's not
Right.
it's not like they're releasing a Tavoro's Courtyard. It's a big new operation. It's got its own story. The first boss that you can get to, you could potentially imagine, ways that they could do that. I'm hoping they do something interesting where you can get to one of the bosses, and the next week or the next month when they open up the next one, they're going to add it in as like you can continue on then. But it'll be pretty cool. And then I don't know the details, and they haven't outlined them completely yet. We're hoping we're going to see some blog posts from them pretty soon, but they're changing the way all of the gear will be dropping in all of the tiers when you open a command crate for getting a command rank. And what they're doing there is, as you get further and further within the tier, say you hit 180, now you're just starting tier 3. As you get, when you're up to like 250 or 270, your chance of getting the set pieces goes up and up and up the further you progress through the tier. So that's one thing. The second thing that they said is that tier 4 will be added, and that's at 300. When you're at 300, the boxes you'll be getting as you hit you make your target within 300. It sounds like you're going to stay at 300, but you're going to keep getting boxes. And those boxes are going to work differently than the first 3 tiers as well. So those are going to be, what they've said so far, what they seem to be hinting at is much greater chance of getting set pieces out of those kinds of boxes, and they're going to work slightly differently. So I'm looking forward to see what that's going to look like.
There is a live stream coming up on March 30th. At least that's what they posted on their Twitch site. So the 30th of March, I imagine that'll be like good timing for them to go into quite a bit of detail and all that you just outlined.
Yes. Thankfully, they're not doing that on April 1st. I think that...
Which will be 2 days later, because March has 31 days.
I turn off the internet on April 1st. I lock my doors and turn off the internet and turn off all electronic devices for the whole day, because you cannot believe anything. You can't believe anything on the internet any other day. And April 1st, everything that you could have maybe believed is wrong. So what's the point of looking at anything?
And the best April Fool's ones are the ones that you wish were true too. So some of them are kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Little guild and community news. SWTOR has a new Academy video that she's put out on her YouTube channel. Those Academy videos are great, so I definitely recommend checking them out. You can definitely check this one out if you're interested in a little blurb, a short vid on how to transfer servers and why you might want to do that. One thing she did miss in her video that she caught up later and added comments on was she mentioned a couple high pop servers to go transfer to. She didn't mention Jedi Covenant, which is our server. It is a high pop server, it's got an awesome guild on it from what I heard. So there's that. So come join us on Jedi Covenant. Although Harbinger and Shadowlands are pretty cool too.
Yes, absolutely. I also want to say that our Wednesday night Imp raid team is looking for a tank. If you can't commit to permanent tank, permanent spot, could definitely use, one for just Wednesday night this week. So if you'd like to tank on the Imp side, talk to Arv.
Yes. Or just talk to Arv anyway. He's a cool guy to
Yeah,
talk to.
yeah. For Conquest this week in our guild, we invaded McCab on the Imp side, just so you guys know, and on the pub side it's Alderaan. Basically, on the Imp side you can do, I think it's mostly going to be war zones on the Imp side, but I think you can also do repeat the heroics on McCab, which I actually haven't done in quite a while. I'm not exactly even sure what the heroics are these days on McCab. And then on Alderaan, there's also some weekly heroics you can do on Alderaan, as well as the normal war zones and GSF.
Yeah, for Conquest Target, and when you're level 70 and you're getting extra bonuses for doing the weekly, so this is the heroic quote unquote week, what used to be a weekly on McCab. You can do that every day. You can do it once a day per character. For if you're level 70. If you're under level 70, I think it's only once a week still.
Right.
So your level 70 characters, and just a reminder of how to do that. Hit Control G, open up the Galactic Command interface, click on Planetary Missions, and see what planet comes up. And if it's not McCab, hit Escape and click on it again, and just keep clicking on it until it comes around and you get McCab. And then you're good to go.
Just keep cycling through. Even if you get Nar Shaddaa 16 times, eventually McCab will come up.
It will. I promise. Well, I don't promise. Because you never know. You never know when it'll be broken. Anyway, that is the things that you can do with our guild around Conquest. You can also come and join us on our mandatory fun nights on Tuesday nights. We had 16 people again tonight, goofing off, just doing some fun stuff. And we do it easy. We had at least one person bring a lower level character and get to level 70 during the night. Everybody was getting some command ranks, so that's always fun. If you do want to join our guild, if it sounds good to you, you can come check us out. You can look on the web at our main guild website, which is for all the games that AIE is in, which crosses a lot of the major MMOs, and that's at aie-guild.org. Or you can jump in on Jedi Covenant, either on the Imperial or Republic side. Do a /cjoin AIELFO, ask for an officer, and if one is on, we'll get you a guild invite. If you look on the website, you can see the way to get more information about what's going on, check in on how to get on Discord. We do have an application system that you don't need an app to get in the guild right away for the SWTOR part of the guild. But if you do get into that tool, that's where you'll see the Discord information, which is a good place to ask for officers. One quick side note. Seema, I'm getting that mic static again.
Oh, sorry.
Mostly it's just when I'm talking. When you're talking, it doesn't happen.
Weird.
I don't know. You may be like, maybe it's the cats are jumping on.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, there, I just heard a little bit again.
I moved my head. Maybe I should never move my head.
You can have a real stiff neck by the end of the end of the show. Also, shout out to the chat room. Thank you, chat room. Where I see a couple of our newer and people that were hanging out in some of my new favorite players in Jedi Covenant.
Yes.
Tiarale and Benori were definitely hanging out with us in Mandatory Fun Night tonight. So it's good to see you guys in there. We got a whole crowd in there tonight. We're going to be talking about some fun stuff tonight, and I'm sure we're going to be getting some things wrong. So thank you, chat room, for being around and being our Borg hive mind to correct us as we go and help make us sound smart.
Right.
We will catch up with you guys after the show, too. But with that, I think we can talk about altering our stats as we go and what that altered deal might look like.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Should I not telegraph the drop-ins so dramatically?
I don't see why not.
In this case, we're going to talk about the altered deal, which for the most part is positive in two ways. And there's two different systems for altering your stats and altering the way you play. Well, I guess it's down for level sync, but it's up for bolster. But both of them have a positive effect overall. So we'll go through the background on what each of them are, and then we'll wrap up the discussion with why they're in the game, why they were implemented, and why you should be happy with it and be interested in what they allow you to do. So Seema, why don't you kick us off by talking about level sync? And I call it planetary level sync, but I guess it's just level sync in general because it also happens in just a couple other places besides planets, right?
Right. Where you see it the most, or where it has the most effect, at least for me anyway, is out on the planets. And I'm out there quite a bit because I like to do the heroics. So when level sync first came about, I had trepidation because that was one of the features that Guild Wars 2 had that I ultimately kind of tired me out on that game, because every zone you went into, since you got leveled down to that zone, it was just, everything was a slog, everything was a war. You never got to that point where you could just run through. So I was a little bit worried.
You're right.
But
You're right. I forgot about that. Same.
The way it actually has. Go ahead.
I played Guild Wars as well, and we'll talk about where you get level synced here and what it feels like. But you're right. I think you were like level synced to like a hard mode version of each of the zones in Guild Wars. So I need just some crappy piece of cloth off of some crappy mob, and I'm like max level character, and I go to this zone, and then I got to spend like a half hour killing these level 10 whatever things so I can get a crappy piece of cloth. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, rats. Yeah.
So basically what level sync does is when you go out to a planet, your level gets set to 1 or 2 levels higher than the highest level of that planet. So like if you're going to Alderaan, for instance, where the highest level, Alderaan is meant to be for levels, we'll say, 25 to 32, you'll get your level capped at 33 or 34. So what does that mean to have your level capped? It essentially means that any mastery you have, endurance, or power get capped at a certain level. So no matter how much over that mastery, endurance, or power you have on your gear, doesn't matter, it's going to be capped to that level. Also, the damage stats on your weapon, like tech and force power, damage ranges and stuff like that, also get capped. What doesn't get touched, though, is alacrity, crit, presence, and presence is the stat that kind of adds to the performance of your companion. Also defense, shield, absorb, and accuracy. So all those sort of secondary stats don't get touched. So you can go in there and have, 3,000 crit and 500 mastery. So that's how it works. What I found, though, my experience when I go out to these planets is not like I feared. I do find that it's, I can still navigate really well around. Of course, SWTOR has a lot of travel, ways to travel, so the instant cooldown, quick travel really helps a lot. But yeah, I haven't found that the bad result or the feeling that I had in Guild Wars 2, where it was just a big slog. It seems to work out pretty well, actually. And I'm actually out there quite a bit. I think maybe the biggest influence over how fast you can go through the heroic missions out on the planets is your companion influence, because that's got the biggest degree of variation, because you can take a companion out there with influence level 1 or a companion with influence level 50. And if you stand in your stronghold and look at your 2 companions at their stats for damage and healing, you'll see a huge variation between 1 and 50. So when I take my level 50 companions out with me to a planet, they do more damage and healing than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, I finally got an Influence 50, my first Influence 50 companion
Dog?
on a character. No, no, on any character. And
Oh, really?
I needed to, side story, I geared up both of my Republic characters, my Republic alts that match my two mains on the Imperial side, my Power Tech and my Mercenary. So my Vanguard and my Commando, I was filling in all of their gear. I needed my Vanguard, who's my biochem, to be making some implants. And so I finally was like, well, I'll finally get a character up to level 50 so I can get the maximum crit. Critting on an implant only gives you the augment slot, but I was like, well, I'll finally do it. And I'm also making stims and stuff. Anyway, I'm just cheap. That's why I had plenty of gifts stacked up to be able to take, and I did it with Nico. I can get Nico to 50 on 2 characters with the gifts I have stacked up. But I was just cheap and it was boring to click a lot of times. So I'll do it on my Mercenary too. My max is level 40 on my companions here. But it does make a big difference in terms of that influence and then the presence, as you said, that you have as you're going down to those planets too.
And there's two things about it too that really make it worthwhile or make it work smoothly, at least for me. One is as things drop from the mobs, even though you maybe level sync down to level 34 or 22 or whatever you are, the gear still drops appropriate for your level.
Right.
And so I have gotten 2 or 3 drops of epic, I think it's 232 gear, BOE pieces. They're not moddable, but it's nice for...
It's useful.
For putting on the GTN, it's useful gear. The other thing is you get the right amount of XP as well. So even though you're killing a level 25 mob and your character is actually level 70, they fixed it so that if you were level 25 killing this level 25 mod and you would have gotten 1% of your bar as experience, you'll get 1% of your bar as level 70. So it's actually worth going out and killing the mobs and worth doing the missions that are out on the planets because you're going to get the right amount of XP and gear drops that are in the range.
Well, that's right on. So and this is the why of level sync and planetary level sync. So it's this kind of thing so that as you go to the planet, it still matters. You're not just one-shotting everything. And because of that, because it still matters and the content matters, they can give you rewards for it. And they can give you the right amount of XP, and they can give you the opportunity to have drops that match your level, and it makes sense. That, and then the heroics. So as they expanded and added heroic planetary missions to all of these places, those heroics have significant rewards associated with them. Command XP and credits and experience if you still need experience. Because we have planetary sync, we get those kinds of things available to us in the game. So same thing, Seema. I had trepidation when they announced that they were adding planetary sync. I was like, sometimes if I want to go get low-level mats or something, I like just going one-shotting everything. However, it's not onerous. You still feel powerful when you go to those places, but you don't just one-shot everything. Everything, it's not like nothing can damage you. So in some ways, even, sort of lore and suspension of disbelief, it feels more real because I can still things can still sort of shoot me and I take damage. It's not like I'm completely immune to everything and I can just walk through anything on Hutta, for example. And I can get rewards and I can go do the heroics on Hutta and get stuff out of it. I like that.
What I do is I wait for a day when planetary missions are the bonus, and that's the day I do the planetary missions where there is a weekly mission associated with it. And by that I mean, like, for instance, the black hole, there's a weekly that you get credit for if you do all the dailies on the black hole. There's one on Voss, there's one on Oricon, there's one on CZ-198. I think I'm leaving out a couple. But those weekly quests, they give you a lot of command XP when you complete one of those, and especially when you do it on a bonus day, and if you have a boost on too.
Yeah, so that's great. Now there is one other place I noticed, and it might not be the only other place, but there is level sync for some of the flashpoints, the story mode flashpoints that are part of the story especially. So like Rishi, for example, when you go into Battle of Rishi or Assault on Tython, you get level synced down to the level that flashpoint entered the game, which was level 55 for those ones. So that's another place that the level sync is kicking in. That again makes that content relevant as you're leveling up, and then still makes it relevant for you to go back down and play it at story mode. Planets that don't have level sync, everything at Knights of the Eternal Throne and above those planets, so Odessin and Zyos and Darvanis, do not have level sync. They're all level 70 planets.
Zyos does
sorry, not
have level
Zyos.
sync. Yeah.
I meant Zakul.
Zakul, right.
So yeah, Odessin, Zakul, and Darvanis do not have a level sync. All right, so let's talk about the flip side. So that's bring your character, capping some of the stats, so it makes the planet matter or makes the content matter. There's also a system that goes the other direction called Bolster. So Bolster kicks in when you get into a situation where they feel that your character needs an extra boost to make you relevant, to make you able to complete content that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise. One of the key places this happens is for PvE is story mode operations. This allows you to take a level 50 character, go into a story mode operation, and have whatever random gear, and get your stats and get your character boosted up then, so that you can participate with a bunch of level 70s that are doing the story mode content. This is also a really useful system. The way this works, though, is it's not like it's taking your level up. This looks at your gear specifically. What they've done in these cases is they pick a target eye level. So if you look at your gear, and this is a little bit confusing in Star Wars, there's the item rating, which is different than like the name or the stat, the way they call the gear. What you want to be looking at is what that rating is. And that rating, so here, if you think of like the tier 1 gear for Knights of the Eternal Throne is the gear rating 230. So 230 then is the item level that you would need to be thinking about when you think about that piece of gear. If you get into a situation like you're queuing into PvP, or you're getting into an operation, and they've decided that there's a target item level, you'll get and you get Bolster. Bolster is available for that, for the story mode operations and for PvP. They'll look at each slot, each piece of gear, and if you're under the item level, then that gear will be boosted up. That piece of gear in that slot will be boosted up to, and given a bonus that then brings it closer to the item level target. You do need to be careful if you have a mix of mods in the piece of gear. If you have moddable gear, it's going to typically, and this is debatable, this is a place where you're going to have to sort of either look, because I think they've changed this a little bit over time. They used to just take whatever the highest mod was and make it that. They may be averaging the mods and giving you a little bit of bonus based on the average of the mods in the piece of gear. I've heard conflicting reports on that. But regardless, mixing mods, if you're really trying to min-max on it, can skew the results a little bit. But if you're looking at the mods, like here, I've got 240 mods in my boots here. That's my item level for this piece of gear. It's all the 240 stuff. I mentioned PvP. This is important in PvP. What this allows people to get when they queue into PvP is, as you hit level 70, if you jump right into PvP, you will get bolstered up, and all your gear, no matter what item level it is, because it'll be below what, assuming it's below 234, it'll be basically boosted up to tier 2 for the most part. It's not a perfect system. The math works a little strangely, so you don't get exactly boosted to 232. But all of your stats for those pieces of gear will get boosted up to that tier 2 level if you're coming in at like tier 1 or below tier 1. When Bolster works, it's not like Planetary Stink, which caps just a couple of your main stats, but then leaves crit and alacrity alone. What Bolster also does is it takes into account your spec and will bolster your secondary stats as well to match your spec. So if you queue in, if you're a tank, if you're tank spec'd and you queue into PvP in tier 1 gear, it'll bolster you up to tier 2, and it'll bolster your tank secondary stats up to tier 2 as well. So you got that going for you, which is nice. There was a little bit of a change in one of the recent patches, maybe 2 patches ago or the last patch. They were treating PvP, the item level that they were syncing everyone to for Bolster was item level 250, which meant everyone was getting bolstered up. Everyone was sort of like getting bolstered up as you went into PvP. No matter if you were tier 1 or tier 3 or whatever you had, everyone was then being raised up, which put everyone on a pretty level playing field. That felt a little bit painful. I think what they did is they had people that were then working really hard to get all of the tier 3 gear, and basically had no real incentive and were not rewarded for doing that. So what they did is they brought down the item level target for PvP to 234, which is tier 2, which means if you're going into PvP with tier 1 or lower gear and you're fighting against people that are in all 240, 242 gear, they are going to be slightly more geared than you. It's close though, and they wanted to keep it close, but they wanted to give those people a little bit of a reward gear-wise for doing that. That's why we're, that's part of the MMO deal, is that's why you're grinding for gear. And give you incentive to grind for your own gear and get that, get that going. I'm fine with it. I think it's controversial, regardless. I prefer MMOs for gear to matter and for specs to matter and for you to have to work a little bit on gear and min-maxing and that kind of thing. For PvP and MMOs, I am not all that fond of the mindset. That happens only in a couple MMOs where you go in and everything is sort of zeroed out and you're exactly this every mercenary has exactly the same stat. Every DPS mercenary has exactly the same stats and everyone has exactly the same health. If I wanted to play that game, I'd play Overwatch.
Right.
That's me on that. You were a PvPer back in the day, Seema. Same thing. I mean, do you sort of agree with that, or do you like it when it's really sort of balanced and matched?
Well, I mean, when it's balanced and matched, it's definitely easier to get new people into it. When it's too much based on gear, it's too soul crushing to get into it because people just die and die. You have to die your way to the first, gear improvements. So I think there is a middle road where you can do both of those things.
Right. I
and
feel
WoW,
like
what they're doing right now is that your PvE gear is your gear for PvP as well, but the more you PvP, you get these new abilities. They're not on your gear; they're just abilities you got for PvP, and that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, your honor talents.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a little bit different talent progression that you get.
Right.
But then if you're real hardcore and you max out all your honor talents, then what you do is you reset them all to 0, and you get a prestige level, and you start back at 0 in WoW. Yeah, I think in SWTOR, I think, and I'm sure not everybody does, but I think the balance is pretty good. I'm fighting against a lot of 240, 242 maxed gear people, and I feel it just a little bit. But now, like in the past week, I've gotten most of my gear up to 240, and I don't feel all that overpowered, and I don't feel underpowered compared to other people. So even and when I was starting out, it seemed pretty good. Nobody seems super easy to kill. It seems like there's a good balance, but gear still matters a tiny bit, so it makes a difference. So I like that. PvE, why it matters in PvE is because we can do things like our mandatory fun night, and we can
Right.
take people that have, and this is what we do. This is how we advertise it in Discord and on the forums. It's mandatory fun night. It's open to everybody. We prefer having people that have never done this stuff before, and then people will say, oh, what gear do I need to have? Anything. Or
Yes,
nothing.
whatever gear you have, your quest gear that you just got to level 50 with is just fine.
Come as you are. If you're level 50 or above, come as you are. We're going to do story mode content. You'll get bolstered. You'll be able to play. You won't be as resilient and and as doing as much damage as the
You might
people that
die.
are maxed out. Yeah, you may die, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. Yeah, so I really like that system. I really like the bolster, making it available to pull people in that way. That's one thing I think they're doing well here. Does that exist? That sort of exists in other games. Some other games, doesn't it?
I
think so.
don't know. I
Um,
don't think I have run into that where you could just go with any gear level into a raid.
The one couple places where it seems broken right now in Star Wars are in the like Xenoanalyst and
Yeah. The eyeless.
the eyeless. Those used to be bolster. The bolster used to work, and then I think they didn't update it once 5.0 came out. They didn't go back and update it for the tier 3, tier 1, 2, 3 of Eternal Throne. So we try to bring people there into the eyeless, and if you're under geared
Yeah.
in there, you die.
You kind of have to be 70 or close to it, or it's rough.
Yeah, that's bad. It's a bad day. You take a dirt nap, make a sandwich, and we'll try to carry your corpse through the fight.
You'll still get
Um,
XP.
I think it's the same on Xenoanalyst too. So hopefully they'll update those. Otherwise, it's pretty good. It's only in the and same with the story mode flashpoints with the level syncing to the planet. And I believe there's bolster in the story mode flashpoints though. But don't quote me on that. The place where you will certainly not get bolster is in veteran or master. You won't get it in veteran or master flashpoints, and you will not get it. You don't get the level sync stuff does not work there because it's all level 70 for veteran and master. And for the operations, you don't get bolstered for veteran and master of operations for PvE. So for those ones, and also uprisings are not, from what I could tell, do not benefit from bolster either. That's level 70 content. And it seemed like, just from my limited testing, that is intended to be at gear level, as part of the sort of the end of the Knights of the Eternal Throne content anyway. So you should be sort of at tier 1 by that point.
So, in summary, level sync is like a cap to make the planets relevant, and bolster happens, out in the world, and bolstering happens more in instance content. So it's going to be in war zones and flashpoints and operations, and it can bring you up to a certain level.
Yep. Yeah. And I think they both work well that way. Anything else? I think we covered most of the ups and downs of planetary sync and bolster.
So funny.
But yeah, and I think we also covered most of the why and why we like it. Yeah, I like them both. I'm glad they're both in the system.
The reason I
guess.
started thinking about level sync is I felt like as I did more and more heroics, because I tend to do them, during coffee and contemplation, and they were getting easier and easier. And I'm like, how does this level sync actually work? Because it shouldn't get easier, but I think it was getting easier because as I got more gear, because effects on my trinkets, crit, like hitting harder more often, and of course my companion. But yeah, so that's why I started looking into how this actually works.
Right, which you mentioned, capping your endurance and your mastery, but leaving your crit and alacrity and your set bonuses and your relic abilities. That's still giving you some of that ability to be strong when you go down and planet sync your level down.
Right. I ain't afraid of no mob
Right. So
or
that is
any
good.
group of mobs. I just
So
let Treek handle them, and I go click on the resource nodes.
so I guess the only thing I would the only extra thing I would talk about, sort of the wall of crazy, that I would like to see them do, which we have seen in other MMOs, is to have Bolster at a group level. So we could go in with 12 people and have our group sort of bolstered out to 16 to do 16-man
Yeah.
content.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see that.
So that's either bolstering or operations syncing down to a 12-person group, whatever the case may be. That's the only extra place that it would be really really nice. And I would like it to go up higher than 16 too.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to take up to whatever the 24 people into an operation. So if we get like 17 or 18 people on one of our mandatory fun nights, we can bring everybody in, and I don't have to ask somebody to sit out.
Right.
And then the same other direction, if we only have 12, we're not only doing Eternity Vault because we know we can do that with 12, but we never get to do anything else.
Right.
Yeah,
Totally agree.
totally agree. Of course, because all my ideas are awesome.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it would, even if you only made it for story mode, but I would like to see it for all modes so that even regular ops teams, if, all the alts showed up that night and they had 10 people,
Yeah,
it'd be nice to
exactly.
be able to take all 10 people in.
And that was on some wish list. I had some other point as well. Why not at least allow us just to bring in companions to fill out the group if we're in a 16-man operation? Let us,
Yeah.
if we've got 12 people, let us pull out 4 companions. Let me have my dog. Give my dog to help us out. Give him a role and let him come play. You can do that in a flashpoint, right? So we should be able to do it in operations too. That would solve it. All right, I think that wraps up our content for the most part. Our EPC 186 droid here is ready to head out in his level 10, level synced escape pod. So thanks to all of you for joining us on newoverlords.com, on iTunes, on YouTube, or live on Twitch here. We will stream again next Tuesday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 p.m. Central. Please follow us on Twitter at MaxTheGray and at AIESEMA. And come find us on Jedi Covenant and ask us for an AIE Guild invite. We would love to have you. And we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.